The Mauricio Pochettino era is off and running, and while we should be guarded here, quietly optimistic, it is off to a very promising start. This is during a time which really, this is the only exciting thing happening with U.S. soccer. Imagine Mauricio Pochettino wasn't here, ramping up the excitement around this program in this October window where, for crying out loud, Mexico had to pick up a game with a Spanish club. And it's Panama we've seen so often, but because Mauricio Pochettino and all his clout and all his gravitas is on the sideline looking like Johnny Cash. Woo! Well, not really Johnny Cash, but that Diego Simeone kind of cut. Lovely, just fashion statement. You know, this guy has got his finger on the pulse. He just looked great. And maybe we went a little bit overboard in the media, following his every step, following him to his dinner reservations, figuring out what wine he was drinking. Every word we hung on to, and we made a story about it. All about these very demanding trainings for the United States. We heard Tim Ream, which was, anyway, you know, we did get carried away. But hey, we should. And any extra exposure we can bring to this program is a good thing, especially here in a nondescript window. There's outside of South America and some African Cup of Nations, this is not the most exciting window by any means. The good stuff just happened, and now we look ahead towards 2025 and 2026. And in this victory over Panama, which was hard fought, it was good. No one really blew us out of the water. We did see what Mauricio Pochettino wanted to do. We saw some interesting tactical and formational shifts. This back three, so to speak, which did a pretty good job. And remember, this is a team missing a lot of key players. So I think it's fair to say, even in November when the Nations League begins and moving into 2025, this is far from what the final product is going to look like. He had that intense press going. We got to see some of those elements and some of the players that may benefit from a Mauricio Pochettino-led team. So we will break all of that down here on the Soccer OG. Check out the Soccer OG podcast where all podcasts are available. We are going to break this thing down as we head towards the final weeks of 2024. Like and subscribe us here. Smash that like button. Smash that subscribe button. And share the good times with me. And this is really going to serve as a preview show for the game against Mexico coming up on Tuesday night in Guadalajara, which takes its own real shape here, and we'll see what that is going to look like. But a few thoughts about what we saw against Panama and how we set the table moving towards this next game against El Tri. I want to say it was a good crowd, and I want to say Mauricio Pochettino is the reason for it. You know, Matthew McConaughey wishing him the best. It was vociferous. It was engaged. The players coming out shot like a cannon, much different than the team we saw in September, and obviously they want to impress a coach. I was a little frustrated why that is required for these players who should be battling in the biggest time for them on the international stage. They want to be part of the 2026 World Cup, and that work, those auditions happen now. So when they lay these eggs in September, and they do their best to turn it on here, it should be like that all the time. So we're watching everything he does. We got to look at what he wanted to do, and we got the feeling certainly that players wanted to impress. We already got an idea of what is that type of Mauricio Pochettino player that could benefit and be a big featured player in 2026. The fact that Gianluca Busio was in the starting 11, and Aiden Morris, or Mark McKenzie, or Brendan Aronson, who certainly looked the part. What about the discussion about that Mauricio Pochettino brought up, you know, suggesting if you're not starting for your club in Europe, that it may hurt you here with the national team, that it may not be room for you. And then all of a sudden he trots out Matt Turner, who's so far away from playing games. It's ridiculous. And he played good. So he got everyone's attention. And I would also add playing Panama 11v11 is a lot more effective than what we saw in the Copa America. Because, yeah, this was a revenge game. I don't think any people thought about it, but it was. And with regards to the tactical shifts, Yunus Musa playing out wide almost as a right back sometimes. Joe Scally tucked in as almost a 3 center back. Very interesting. And it paid off because Yunus Musa scored the goal, and in a spectacular goal, one of the better U.S. goals we've seen in a minute. After a first half where there's some missed opportunities, it was a pretty poor first half, to come out in the second half and have this combination play where Jedi Robinson and Christian Pulisic and Yunus Musa were so influential in that spot. So very good, very good maiden voyage. And now we move forward towards what is going to look like in this game on Tuesday. So a few other little observations as we try to figure out how this is going to break down. We talked about the goalkeeper. Matt Turner starts here. Maybe a different guy will start the next time around. We talked about the number 9. And we now have to have a real big boy conversation about Josh Sargent. I really want Josh Sargent to work out. When you put them player against player, he is better than Ricardo Pepi. He is better than Brandon Vasquez. He is better than Haji Wright. Folarin Balogun, maybe not there, but Josh Sargent has all the pieces. He does all the little things, but we need him to score a goal. And what I heard is he hasn't scored a goal for the national team in 5 years. And at that point, you can't wait for him to finally click. There is too much competition. There's too much at stake. I have the feeling that it's going to fall in place for Josh Sargent, but we can't sit around and wait for it and risk that. There is no doubt that Flo Balogun, more than ever, is the number 1 guy. He's not healthy. We wait for him to come back. But now we see if Josh Sargent has fallen down the pecking order with regards to second. I don't think so. I think Pochettino likes him, but he has to score a goal. And I hope he can score a goal against Mexico. The center back situation, Tim Ream played pretty well. I stand by the fact I just don't think he is a guy that's going to make the 2026 World Cup. But we need leaders. We need center backs that can pass. Mark McKenzie was voted the U.S. men's national team player of the game, which is great news. It's fine. But I think Tim Ream and Matt Turner's role are both up for grabs. The midfield, will Gianluca Busio be a factor? That was a surprise in the starting 11. Aiden Morris to a lesser degree, because I think, as we mentioned here, that he has the look of a guy that, if Tyler Adams isn't ready to go, will be the starter at that deep-lying midfield spot, ahead of Tanner Tessman and Johnny Cardoso. Johnny Cardoso, not in this camp, hasn't looked good in his moments with the national team. So he still has plenty of opportunities, and we'll see what happens in November as we move forward. But I don't want to dwell too much on it. It was a good effort. Let's talk about Mexico. And before this game, the news that 5 players are going to be sent back to their clubs: Marlon Fossey, Ricardo Pepi, Christian Pulisic, Zach Steffen, and Weston McKennie. And Weston McKennie being here is a bit puzzling, because if he was never going to start, maybe it was best that he just stayed at his club, get a couple days off, and get ready. And that's what Mauricio Pochettino said. He says Christian Pulisic has done what he is supposed to do. We're sending him back to his club. He mentioned that a couple times, which I think is great, because this is the way it works. The club to the country pipeline has to work. The club and the coaching at those clubs set those players up to succeed. So what Christian Pulisic is doing at Milan, and Yunus Musa is doing at Milan, and Weston McKennie is doing at Juventus, and Flo Balogun is doing at Monaco, that coaching, that process is going to be part of Mauricio Pochettino getting these players ready for the big games. So it's good to see that he's developing that relationship, which most coaches do, but sometimes these guys put priority and will call players in when they shouldn't. This was a situation I think that's a great idea. Send them back. Let these guys, some of them have injuries, get back. So now we are essentially looking at a 20-man roster for this Mexico game. With regards to that, I don't know what the starting 11 is going to look like. But I think if you are Mauricio Pochettino, use this opportunity to experiment. Hard to do that when you're about to play Mexico. But experiment, and when you have 20 guys, see if you can get as many of them some minutes, so you get a little bit of tape on all of them. So with that said, I think this is what I'm going to throw out there. I think Patrick Schulte comes in at goal. Christopher Lund, I would imagine, comes in for Jedi Robinson because he put in a big shift, but Jedi was maybe our best player. Maybe we've got to get used to saying that. Tim Ream, probably give him a rest. You bring McKenzie, either Austin Trusty or Miles Robinson come in for Ream. Maybe Trusty and Miles Robinson come in together and you give them a shift. Why not? So let's say Christopher Lund, Miles Robinson, Austin Trusty, Joe Scally, Tanner Tessman for Morris. Let's keep Yunus Musa in there. Malik Tillman comes in that third midfield spot. And with no Ricardo Pepi, you could start Josh Sargent, but give Brandon Vasquez a chance playing in Mexico where he plays. Give Alejandro Zendejas a shot as well. And Haji Wright, and that's your front three. What do you think about that? It's not bad. Although if it's Jedi Robinson and Josh Sargent in there instead of Lund and Vasquez, and maybe Mark McKenzie gets back in there, so there's not too much turnover, I will get it. But I think you get everybody who's there a run. You can't get all the goalkeepers a run, but you certainly can give the field players a chance there. So everything is going to take a time to adapt, and we've got to be patient here. Now, this is the issue with Mexico. You beat Panama, great. Panama's a really good program, up and coming. I think they are the fourth best. You could say that here in CONCACAF, making the knockouts in the Copa America. There will be some displeasure and criticism if the United States do not beat Mexico, because they haven't lost to them in 7 games. I mean, they haven't played down there in forever. And Mexico is in a bad spot right now with everything. We'll get to that. But before we look at the Mexico game, it shouldn't be a big deal if the United States lose to Mexico, but it's easy to say that because it is a big deal. And if Mexico can beat USA, you breathe life back into that El Tri program. And this is a chance for the United States just to say, you are not going to be a factor. You are way off our bumper. If the USA beats Mexico with this team without Balogun, McKennie, Pulisic, and on and on and on, Mexico is in dire straits. So that is a dilemma. I think we really should allow Mauricio Pochettino to have an experimental 11 and a fluid substitution pattern. Play everybody. Play 2 keepers if you have to. But it is Mexico, and you're playing down there, and I don't think that will be afforded. And the momentum with this Pochettino hire, for it to hit a snag by losing to Mexico, wouldn't be great. We've got to keep building. We can't have speed bumps. We've got to keep building. So there is a unique piece of pressure for that. So Mexico, really weird with El Vasco Aguirre in charge. They had a game with Valencia, and they only had 2 regular players, and it was a youth team. So this was something that, I think Mexico, who didn't play their first team, I thought it was a very good team with Germán Berterame, this naturalized Argentine, as the number 9. Ossie Herrera, who looked pretty good, could get up there. Andres Guardado and Memo Ochoa are on this roster, did not start that game. So Raul Jimenez as well. So they didn't really come out with the intent of just blowing Valencia out of the water, which maybe they should have. They should have won this game 3 or 4-0. They took a 2-goal lead, and then they let it get away. They should have scored 3 or 4 goals in this game. It was in Puebla, and there was a lot of empty seats. And remember, in September, they played in Los Angeles and Dallas. The stadiums were empty. There is a malaise around Mexican football. It's really, really quite disturbing if you're a Mexican football fan. The interest is not there, and it's continuing to get lower and lower. The media is really upset. The reaction to this Valencia game was very negative. I don't know. Maybe Vasco Aguirre set that game up to get the most out of this. They're going to be in Guadalajara. I don't know what the attendance is going to look like, but if we don't see a full house, this is more alarm bells for Mexico. And I think you play your best team against a USA team, which will be far from their best team. And that goes all into the mixer, which is going to be for all those reasons, this is a fascinating matchup and one that will set the table for 2025. The next games for USA and Mexico, November 14th, 15th, against an opponent to be determined, and then a second leg of the Nations League, and then we are into it, and we hope the U.S., I believe they said it was going to be in Los Angeles for the Nations League final, and hopefully the United States is back there again. So, don't want to bring up Greg Berhalter, but he beat Mexico over and over again. So that is the standard. We said Mexico is down. So if Mauricio Pochettino doesn't beat this, while I say it doesn't really matter, that is going to come up. So let's keep going, moving forward. So hopefully we see that development here for the United States. Tune in on Tuesday night. It's going to be an interesting one. And when I say interesting, going to be entertaining. We'll see how many changes get in there. Again, it's a pretty threadbare unit for the United States, but this will show you the depth we have, and maybe a guy can move up the pecking order for Mauricio Pochettino in these 90 minutes. The Soccer OG, check out the Soccer OG podcast where all podcasts are available. Like and subscribe us here. We'll be back to recap Mexico and get you ready for what's going to happen on the horizon in November.